Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Smith, and inside this game overview and gameplay video, I'm checking out Deep Regrets. As it mentions right on the front of the box, it's an unfortunate fishing game about pulling progressively more horrifying things out of the ocean. Deep Regrets is a game for 1 to 5 players and can be thought of as having 2 major modes of play. The first mode is the multiplayer mode, where you'll have all game components in use as well as all gameplay aspects. And then there's a solo mode, which uses a portion of the gameplay components and a portion of the gameplay aspects. And it's going to have you coming at it from a Pokemon-style catch everything in the deep approach. You'll have an ocean survey, a list of small fish, medium-sized fish, and large fish that you're going to be trying to capture one of everything to complete the campaign in solo mode play. Here's a look at my ocean survey. In the top left-hand corner, you're going to see my name underneath that, the departure date and the completion date to fill out. When you go out for solo mode play, you'll be going through the run of a work week, which is going to run from Monday to Friday. So every single day, as part of that one game session, you'll be going out and trying to gather as much fish as possible for 5 days. At the end of those 5 days, you come back to port, and then you try to take the value of what you've captured and use it to be able to pick up new equipment, and you could find all the equipment you can pick up and the cost of that equipment on the left-hand side. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side, there's a column for small fish. If we flip this over to the opposite side, there are 2 more sizes of fish to record and capture. You're going to see middling running along the left-hand side and large on the right-hand side. Also varying depth levels along this track too. You'll see depth 1, 2, and 3. This will be important later on as we're picking up fish and different creatures in the deep. So as you go through the solo mode, as you capture fish, you're going to be recording them on this sheet. Once you've captured them, you'll take the name of the fish and the type of the fish, whether it's foul or fair, and write that information in along with the difficulty to capture it and the value that the fish actually is. Now, when you do this, you haven't done everything yet. You still need to bring that fish back to port, and then you still need to be able to have it after you've compared the value of the fish to the value of regret that you've gained while out there fishing. And there's an interesting quick equation there of just taking away fish based on how much regret you have. So even though you might have recorded a fish and actually have it, like I have one here, this bottom one, I didn't get to place a check mark on it because in my very first game, I had some regret to pay, and because of it, that fish went back. So it's something I need to actually capture yet again in the future, and hopefully I can hold on to it. That's all you need to know about the Ocean Survey right now. We'll dive more into the details of it as we get into gameplay very soon. Now, to spice up what's in the sea, I'm going to be adding in Lamentable Tentacles mini expansion. This will add a number of new creatures into the game for depth 1, 2, and 3. You'll have a number of these cards to add in. You can add them in one of 2 ways. Either take them based on the backs of their cards and go ahead and simply merge them into the decks, or you can go ahead, if you have a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you want to put all the mini expansion new cards you haven't seen yet into this deck, and you want them to come up more often, remove 6 from the core game and put these 6 in to replace it, giving you a higher chance of actually seeing ones from the mini expansion. For me personally, I just prefer to merge it all together. In just a moment, I'll show you the exact cards going into each of the depth decks before we shuffle them in, but before we merge things together, I want to make one thing truly clear. If you're playing solo mode, there are a number of cards you need to remove from each of these depth decks from the core box before you start merging things in, and I've got them right here, so I'll show them to you visually, and also one of them comes from the Dink card deck, and that looks like this. It's going to be the Odd Ring card. You're going to take this one out. The card deck it comes from is this one right here. So have this removed, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to remove these cards from the varying depth levels. They're going to start off at level 1 and run through to 3. Once those core cards have been removed, we can now put the mini expansion cards in. We'll take a look at them right now so you can actually see which ones come as part of the mini expansion. There's a number for each depth level. There's also some multiplayer specific biggest regret cards. We're not going to be using these for solo, so you can remove those out of the equation. I'll go ahead and show you them visually so you can see each of these expansion creatures that are going into the decks. The decks have now grown in size, the expansion's been merged in. Let's talk about the rest of the game components that have been set up on the table, and we'll head into gameplay. On page 23 and onwards in the rulebook, you'll find all the solo and cooperative rules, including a list of the setup instructions. The very first step we've already completed, which was to remove cards from the core experience. The second step is to set up the seaboard. The seaboard is broken into a number of different areas, but the ones that are outlined in a card shape are known as shoals, and there's varying depth levels as well. So at the very top row where my ship is, you'll see depth 1 across the row. Then below that, depth 2, and below that, depth 3. There are 3 slots for each of the rows, and you're going to go ahead right now and take each of the decks and randomly draw 13 cards into each of the piles. Depth level 1 is done, 13 cards in each of the piles and all of them face down. That'll do it for depth number 2. Worth mentioning, all cards not placed inside of the stacks of 13 cards each are returned back to the box. That's going to do it. All 9 shoals are all filled in. With step 2 complete, steps 3, 4, and 5, very straightforward. Find the Ocean Survey board. If you're having a tough time finding it, it's on the opposite side of the Madness board, which is used during multiplayer. So flip this over to the Ocean Survey board, place it down nearby, then find the Regret deck, which looks like the deck in the top right-hand corner of mini cards, shuffle them all together and place them up there in the watermarked area. Then find this token here and place it on the very first day of the work week, which is Monday. Now let's go over all of the rest of the steps to set up all at once. Next up, you're going to choose your angler, and of course you'll have a choice between varying options. I've gone ahead and chosen Fred here. You can choose either side. It is a double-sided board, so feel free to choose his more attractive side if you wish. The game comes with a number of options to choose between. I'll show you all the rest of the other options you have. And there are even better-looking sides on the back. Once you've chosen your character, find the corresponding color matching dice that go along with that character. So I've got my 3 right here. We'll talk more about the dice in a second, and also the ship that ties into that character, which I've already placed up on depth level 1. That's where that ship should go. There is a ship section off to the left on the seaboard. If you're playing the solo mode for the very first time, you'll only have 1 card rather than the 3 I have here, and it'll be the Can of Worms, which you can go ahead and flip over to peek at 1 fish, putting it back on the top or bottom of a shoal. Now, it's worth mentioning because I've already played a game, I cashed in some value based on the catches that I got, and I was able to obtain a lucky pull and a wood and brass reel. So these are going to provide me with some benefits. So for instance, the lucky pull states your first fish each day costs 2 less in terms of difficulty to catch it. Pretty awesome. The wood and brass reel says once per day you can reroll up to 2 of your fresh dice. That's really handy because, as you will see, when you typically roll the dice, you're stuck with it for that given day. This allows you to reroll, giving you a higher chance at going after higher difficulty or value fish. The final thing you'll want to do is grab 2 reference cards. On either side, there'll be worthwhile information. So for example, one side will be fishing, the other side will be sea life. So place 2 of them side by side so you can see all information. And same over here for the icons. One side will have some information while the other side has different information. You'll notice I've crossed out a number of things off the icons here, and that's because as I'm playing this one solo, those particular abilities or actions you cannot do during solo mode. These are mentioned in the solo mode section of the rulebook, but just as a reminder visually for you guys, I've gone ahead and actually crossed them out on the cards so you can see exactly which ones we can still take advantage of. Now, in just a moment, we'll go into gameplay and you'll see exactly how things flow and operate, and that'll touch on what is going on this card right here. But at the very bottom of it, I want to make mention of something. It states you may use items or eat fish at any time during your turn. In the solo mode, you won't be eating any fish. As you can see, I've crossed that out. Might be even tough to see because I've crossed it out. But you cannot take advantage of that particular icon that looks like Jaws or Fish Jaws any longer in the solo mode. And then over here on the right-hand side, we've got the Angler's Guide to Sea Life. This is going to show the depth level, the difficulty difficulty level in terms of the value, the range of values to go after small, mid, or large, and then the actual ratio on the right-hand side. And there was a tweak to this. It actually, instead of being 3, is a 2. So I've again visually done this by marking it on the card. And that ratio is going to give you an idea as to what kind of odds you have of getting a fair fish versus a foul fish. So 2-to-1 for depth 1, 1-to-1 for depth 2, and 1-to-3 for depth 3. So without further ado, let's dive into gameplay together. Here's a nice summary on page 24 of the rulebook in terms of the phases you go through in solo and cooperative play. So you have phase 1, which is refresh, where you'll clock in, then you'll coffee up, and then you'll kit out. And then phase 2 is survey. We're going to catch, catalog, and then clock out at the end. You'll also see a lot of what I mentioned prior in terms of things you're going to be ignoring abilities-wise in solo mode, again, which I've gone ahead and crossed out on the reference cards and made mention of earlier in the video. Also worth mentioning, you'll be staying down. So when you spend dice, after you see me roll some, if I decide to spend a die to go to deeper depths, and every single die spend will take you to a level deeper, you actually get to stay down for the entirety of the game, which is pretty cool in solo mode. That is not the case in multiplayer, where you actually raise back up by a level. The final thing I want to mention here, for individuals that are also interested in picking this up, not only for the solo mode, but also for the multiplayer, they are vastly different experiences in terms of how they actually play and what they use inside the gameplay. So don't think what you're seeing here for solo play is a representation of the multiplayer, just like the multiplayer wouldn't be a representation of the solo mode. From a solo angle here, which you'll be seeing in just a moment, think about this game as a more relaxing solitaire game of trying to collect and capture and keep all of the unique creatures of the sea. That is the aim here, so put in a good movie, get a drink, sit back, and enjoy your time fishing as you would on the open water. Let's go ahead and clock in for our first solo mode play, and the marker's already on Monday, so we skip the clock in step, which is typically to move the marker from one day to the next. Next, we're going to coffee up, we're going to grab the dice, we're going to roll these dice and find out what we get. Remembering that we have some cards that have effects that can help us out here. Once per day, we can reroll up to 2 of our fresh dice. So what we're trying to get here is high values off the dice. And if you're wondering exactly what kind of values you're going to get off your dice, you can see the dice sides on this reference card right here that actually stayed up there for player 1, 1, 2, and 3. You can actually obtain and unlock red, blue, green, and orange dice, which can increase the odds and of course give you different variations of values when they're rolled. You can actually get this in the solo mode as well. That's in the mid section of the equipment purchases on the Ocean Survey pad. Let's go ahead and roll these dice and see what we get to start. I would go ahead and say that that very first roll was certified fresh. Once you roll your dice, you'll place them into the fresh area of your dashboard. It's worth mentioning a correction on the unlockable dice you can add into the equation in solo mode. The omen die, the red die, is not one you can unlock. Only the blue, green, and orange. So at this point, we've got 3 dice in the fresh area. I could make use of my wood and brass reel. Once per day, I can reroll up to 2 of my fresh dice. I don't have any plans to try and get a 2 to become a 3. The odds are not so great. I'd rather go after that 1. Let's see if we can make it a little bit better. Nope. That was phase 1 now done. Phase 2 is all about catching. At this point, we're going to perform the fish action, which is described right on the reference card we talked about earlier. We're going to go ahead and pick a shoal. We're going to flip the top fish if it's not revealed already. And again, we have to do it based on where our ship level is. We're currently at depth level 1. If I wanted to go to depth level 2, I could go ahead and simply spend a die off and I just move that die over. I could pick one that is a high value die or a low value die. But again, remember, whatever value on your dice you have are going to help you towards the difficulty levels you need to get in order to capture a fish. So it wouldn't be wise to go ahead and spend a 3 in order to drop down in the depths and just leave myself with a 2 and a 1. It would make a lot more sense if I wanted to drop down with these high value ones with the 1 instead. I'm actually kind of tempted to do that. And a reminder that in solo mode, when you choose to drop down in the depths, you remain there until the end of the work week. So think about the timing of when you want to start dropping down the depths, because once you're down there, you're not coming back up. Let's go ahead and remain at depth level 1. We'll keep all of our dice instead. Let's take a look at depth level 1 here on the Sea Life card. It tells us across the varying size of the fish, whether small, middling, or large, the difficulty to actually catch it, as I talked about before, and then the ratio 2-to-1 for fair versus foul. Now, there's something on the cards at the depth level on the seaboard which will help you in determining what you're going after when you're doing your very first fishing action here, which is going to be to cast, where you pick a shoal, flip the top card if unrevealed. We're going to do that right now at level 1. As you can see at depth level 1, there's a number of shadowed areas which will give you an indication of how big a fish really is before you actually encounter it. So when you have particular dice that only go up to a certain value and you're looking at the difficulty chart and trying to determine what is your risk-reward factor, you might be thinking, hey, I don't have much for a value of dice. I should probably go after the small one in the middle there at level 1 rather than the really large one on the far right-hand side. But I've actually got some good dice rolls, so I'm going to be crazy, and we're going to reveal that one on the far right. So after casting to that location, we found ourselves a tri-tentacle. We now check for any revealed effects. Revealed effects will have an eye icon, and this one does not. It actually has an icon which is only going to trigger if we catch this thing. In the top left-hand corner, a 4, which shows the value of this creature when we bring it back to port. And in the top right-hand corner, the difficulty to actually catch this thing. And at this point in time, we have to decide if we want to try and catch it. We have a die roll of 3, 2, and 1. So I could use my 3 and my 1 in order to use those to capture this fish. If I only had a 3 and a 2, if I decide to combine those to capture it, the additional would be lost. Now, it's worth mentioning there's a little red icon underneath the value icon in the top left-hand corner. That does not matter for solo play, but the icon of the hook at the very bottom of the card is certainly going to matter as we catch the fish right now by spending the 3 and the 1. Now, I've chosen to go ahead and catch this thing. It's worth mentioning between triggering any revealed effects and paying for the fish difficulty by using dice, you can choose not to catch the fish that you've revealed. If you choose not to, though, you're going to take a ding card in the top right-hand corner, but you also have to still spend a die. So you're burning a die by not catching it. So there might be situations where A, you don't want to catch said creature that has popped up, and B, you might not have the dice necessary to even match the difficulty of that creature in the first place. However, Fred really wants this one, as he does not have this one identified on his ocean survey or actually caught when brought back to port, so he is definitely going to catch this. The second you go ahead and spend the die to catch it, meeting its difficulty level or exceeding it, you can then at that point go ahead and record your findings on your ocean survey. The tri-tentacle comes from depth level 1, and it's a large fish. So we flip over the ocean survey and we find the area where it talks about depth level 1 for large fish. We're going to record our finding as we don't currently have that one in the list. If it was in the list, you wouldn't go ahead and write it down. Now, the type of fish is going to be noted right on the card. In this case, it's large and foul, so that's how we knew it was a large fish, and it's also foul in terms of its type. You'll also notice I've gone ahead and placed in the value as well as the difficulty level to the right. The one thing I haven't done, though, is checked off the box because we have not brought this fish back to the port yet, and we haven't actually had any regret comparison happen. That's going to happen at the very end of the work week, and regret may actually have us lose what we captured here. Let's go ahead and make it a correction and adjustment to something I should have caught. I got caught up in actually explaining some of the rules around things, but he has a lucky pull, and it says your first fish each day costs 2 difficulty less to catch. So instead of us spending the 4, this one only is going to cost 2, which means we have a lot more dice at our disposal. And just to remind myself, I've already used these cards for this day. I'll go ahead and flip these cards over. Now, we're not out of the woods yet, but I do want to show you something that could have really messed with us depending on the timing of things. And another reason why I went after this thing was because, as you can see, a fish difficulty trigger here states that we would have drawn a regret card for each foul fish in our hand. So in other words, if we had already got a bunch of foul fish and then this tri-tentacle had showed up, then we would have got a whole bunch of regret for each of those foul fish we already had. So it was a great time to pick this one up so that trigger didn't hurt us. All right, so far so good for Fred. Let's go ahead and find another creature to go after. Now, as you can see out there, we've got something small in the middle, we've got something medium on the left, and something very large on the right. Now, based on having 4 left on our dice, we could push the envelope and go for the large based on the difficulty breakdown being around 2 to 4 for the large. So let's go for it. And we lucked out. This is a great value. It only costs 2 in order to capture, and it's going to give us 4 in total value. That is awesome. Now down below, it shows an eat icon. Again, we're not doing this during solo mode, so we can completely ignore that. I'm absolutely going after this one. Now the tricky thing is I have a 3 and I have a 1, so I can't use the 1 because it's not going to be enough. I'd have to use the 3 on top of it to use 4, which is all of my dice to pick this one up. Instead, I'll just go ahead and burn my 3, which unfortunately has me tossing 1 of my points out the window. I've caught a Goliath grouper and I've added it to my recorded findings. With one more die left of a value of 1, let's go ahead and see what the small fish is in the middle. Now the difficulty level on a depth 1 small is usually 0 to 2. Not bad at all. We got ourselves a cutthroat trout. That worked out perfectly as we have just 1 to spend, so we can absolutely take this one. We don't have to worry about the eat icon at the very bottom. That's going to be another fair fish, the cutthroat trout, which has now been added in. And just like that, we've run out of dice, so now we proceed to day number 2, which is Tuesday. We've also got our lucky pull and our wood and brass reel back. Let's go ahead and roll our dice and find out what we get for values. And we'll re-roll anything using the wood and brass reel once we get a roll that is not as good as the last one that I got. So we're going to go ahead and keep the 2 and re-roll the 2 1s, hoping for better things thanks to the reel. And we got exactly the same thing we already had. So we're going to have to work with this. Based on the low roll, I think it's as good a time as any to go ahead and get deeper into the depths. We're going to go ahead and spend a single die to drop down to depth number 2. Things will certainly get a little bit tougher now as the difficulty is going to go up across small, medium, and large. A small is going to be difficulty 1 to 3, mid is going to be 2 to 4, and large now goes from 3 to 5. It's a 1-to-1 ratio for fair and foul. Now, right in front of my ship in the very first shoal is a very large fish, and the 2 beside it are medium fish. I'm very curious as to what is right beside my boat there. I only have 3 value total in order to try to catch something. I'm on the brink of catching something large, but it could go up to 5. So let's go ahead and use the can of worms. We can go ahead right now to flip this card over to peek at 1 fish, and we can choose to put it back on top or the bottom. I found a giant octopus. We got a value of 6 there, a difficulty of 4, and it says it must be caught with exactly 2 dice. I'm definitely choosing to place that one right back on top yet again because I think I can go after that in the future. Now, right now, I should probably go after a medium fish, so let's go ahead and cast into the middle. It appears I found myself a frilled shark. This has a difficulty of 2, a value of 4. It's middling and fair. It says at the very bottom when we catch this thing, as a fish difficulty, discard 1 small fish. Ooh, so we have to actually toss something, which means we have to get rid of our cutthroat trout, as that's the only small one we have. Honestly, it's not a horrible trade-off. We're getting a 4 value, and the cutthroat trout is only a 1, but that means, as I mentioned before, even though I wrote down cutthroat trout and recorded it on the ocean survey, if I go ahead and discard the cutthroat trout, there is no way I'm getting the check mark when I go back to the port. Let's also make this very first fish of Tuesday easier to catch because it's a difficulty 2, and my lucky pull allows me to catch it for free. You're not going to hear me complaining about any free fish we can pick up, so we're going to go ahead and take the frilled shark the second we do as part of the difficulty check. Even though it was free based on using the rod, the cutthroat trout is gone. Not bad at all. We added it to our middling fish at level 2. Fair, frilled shark, 4-2 is the values. So we've got that recorded. That ended up being a nice value overall. So we got 3-4 fish in our current boat with us. And we also were able to keep 2 dice on Tuesday thanks to using the rod to help keep the difficulty down. Pretty good. Let's head to the shoal in the very center of depth 2. And it appears we found a box jellyfish. This one does have a reveal effect that says reroll 1 of your fresh dice. So I'm going to go ahead right now, knowing that I have a 2 and a 1. I'm absolutely rolling the 1. We're going to go ahead and see if we get something better than what we had, and it turned into a 2. That's great. We'll go ahead and spend the 2 right now in order to capture this one. Doing pretty good. We got 1 more die left to spend. Let's keep on fishing. Let's keep going in that middle shoal area here, which has a small fish inside of it. I want to see what's there. We only have 2 left, and the difficulty rating for smalls are 1 to 3, so we should be okay with this one, hopefully. What do we have here? A lamprey, a small and fair. This is actually quite nice. We haven't seen many fowls. We've been getting lucky with the fairs so far. This is a difficulty of 1, so very cheap. Well, let's go ahead and go after this one. Why not? Although it says at the bottom here, an interesting effect says reveal a large fish from your hand to catch this automatically. The Goliath grouper allows us to pick this one up without spending a single die. Tuesday's been pretty good for us so far. Let's check out the shoal on the far right. And of course, the sea heard me the second I mentioned I was picking up too many fair fish. A foul one shows up with an effect, a reveal effect, that says all players are now going to draw a regret card. Off the top of the deck, we go ahead and reveal what we got, and it is a 1, Nagging Regret. It says at the very bottom, got a bad tattoo. We don't want to be gathering lots of regret, as it's going to impact what we bring back to the port at the end of the week, but we have one in hand right now. Also, something bad that's happening is the fact I have a single 2 die left, and the difficulty here is a 3, so I can't take this one, unfortunately, which means I have to spend the die that I have, as I'm not catching this one, and then I'm going to draw one of the dink cards in the top right-hand corner of this seaboard. Oh no, the dink card didn't give me anything decent. I got myself a clump of seaweed. It says no effect, but hang in there, you'll be okay. After having a great Tuesday, fishing a clump of seaweed is probably exactly what I deserve. Now, there are other great cards inside the dink deck that can provide benefits and help you out, so even when you can't catch something, the dink deck sometimes can provide you some benefits that'll help you catch something later on, or maybe even deal with regret or other game effects. That's going to wrap up Tuesday. Let's head to Wednesday. We got our rod and reel back. Let's go ahead and roll the dice and see what we get. Oh, that's a great roll. We got 2 3s and a 1. I'm absolutely re-rolling this one with the wood and brass reel. And it does say once per day you can re-roll up to 2 of your fresh dice. So you can choose to keep everything that I rolled right now, essentially, and just keep on going, because other effects of fish might mess with these dice during the day. And then you could essentially use your wood and brass reel in order to try to bring you back to something better. Or you can try to push things like I might do right now. And actually, it's really tempting. No, that's a pretty good roll. I don't know. Maybe I will. I'll go ahead and re-roll this. This might come back to bite me. I don't like rolling just 1 die with this one, but let's see if we get lucky. Oh my gosh. That is crazy. Now, I almost completely regret not going ahead with that last die that I had and dropping down to depth level 3, because with this 9 value here, I could have gone after something absolutely ridiculous a couple times in the bottom depths. But again, remember, these rolls won't always be like this. I might get 3 1s, and the re-rolls might not give me anything. Let's go ahead and check out the very large fish right next to my boat here. As I got caught up in the explanation of things, I slightly forgot that I had revealed the giant octopus earlier, and it stated on it that it must be caught with exactly 2 dice, which is really not good right now because I have some great high value dice. So the question is, do I want to go ahead? And this is even worse because I have the lucky pull too. So the lucky pull is going to reduce the difficulty down to 2, but then I have to use 2 dice anyway to take it, which means not only does the lucky pull not provide me really anything, but I'm burning 2 3 dice on top of it. So I'm just wasting a whole bunch of good stuff. So what I could do instead is I could choose not to catch this one, although the way it's worded here for the lucky pulls, it says your first fish each day costs 2 less to catch. Now, if I'm understanding that properly, I believe that regardless, this is my first fish. I don't think I get a choice to, not take this one and then get to use the lucky pull elsewhere. So in essence, it really comes down more so to, do I want to burn 2 3 dice in order to go after this one? Maybe. It's a 6 value. It's pretty solid, so let's go for it. Pretty good. Giant octopus in the large fish area here. Also, I'm using my final 3 die to pick up the other revealed fish, which is at depth number 2. This one right here, a middling fowl, which has been placed here. That's going to do it. All my dice have been spent. We're moving on to Thursday. At this point, we're more than halfway through the work week. My lucky pull and my wood and brass reel are ready to go. Let's go ahead and roll the dice and see how we do. All right, a 3, 2, and 1, not bad. So I'll do the same thing I did before. 3 and 2 is good. I will re-roll the 1, and that's a 2. Not bad. I like it. Now let's find ourselves a fish and use our lucky pull to reduce the difficulty by 2. Now let's get a little bit crazy. As I can see in depth level 3 that we have 2 small fish and a medium fish, and I think I can actually go after that, and it might be a good time to do it. So let's go ahead and actually spend a die right now to drop ourselves further into the depths. I'm now going to go after this one right here. We'll reveal it and find out what it is. This one is called No Face. It's a middling and foul creature. It says reveal a fish called Two Face from your hand to catch this automatically. I do not have that, so I can't catch it. It also says down here, when the fish difficulty is tackled, which is a 3, it's going to give us 2 regret cards. So that makes going after this one a bit of a tougher call as to whether or not I should actually choose to go ahead and capture it. With a 3, I could absolutely do it. Of course, a lucky pull will make it a 1, which makes it even easier. So under the dice that I have, a 3 and a 2, I could use my 2 and just gather it, but then I have to take some regrets. And I think I still might do it anyway because, well, then I'll still have the 3 to maybe go after one of the smaller ones or whatever comes after this. Oh, it's a tough call. I don't really know if I should. The other option is I could hold off on this. I could burn a 2. I could take a dink card and hope that it's a good one, and then maybe search around into the other areas with my final 3 die and hope that I get enough to go after something that maybe doesn't give me so much regret. It's a tough call. I'm still pondering this decision because I'm very much wanting to make use of the lucky pull, and this is the first fish that I'm going after. So if I don't go after this one, I don't get to use the lucky pull on something else. So the thing is, getting this for just a 2 die is pretty awesome with that discount on the difficulty. I just don't like getting those regrets. And if I happen to get a regret that's a 3 or a 2, that is absolutely going to come back and take away fish that I've accumulated. And I've actually got a good number so far and only 1 nagging regret, which is pretty good. I've been actually very fortunate, unlike the first run out that I did. So here's the thing. What I might do is choose to just be a little bit scared and take the 2 here. And I'm going to choose to not catch the no face right now. Maybe I'll go after it on Friday, seeing as I'm stuck down here in the depths anyway. Let's go ahead and grab a card from up here in the dink deck and hope it's something better than what I had before. We got some sea glass. Now, this is a perfect card to get. Wish I already had this one. Otherwise, I would absolutely go after the no face without any question, because this sea glass allows me to discard the sea glass piece in order to discard a regret card. So as of right now, I could discard the nagging regret, which is a 1 that I have currently in hand, but that's not really a high value card, and I might get something on the tail end of Thursday, which I'm currently on, or maybe even on Friday. So maybe we'll just keep this in our back pocket for now, as we just gained it anyway, and we'll hold off until some other regret comes along that's a lot more higher value than the 1, and if it doesn't, we'll use it for the 1 maybe on Friday. All right, so I got 1 more die to spend. It is a 3, and the difficulty for small fish, which each of these are, is 2 to 4. So I'm in a good spot right now. Let's just pick one or the other. I'm not sure left or right. Let's go to the far edge. Well, that didn't work out for us at all. A Slitmouth is here. It says fish difficulty is going to give 2 drawing of regret cards, which is crazy. And then it says we can increment a die while we try to capture it. So actually, oh, this is interesting. So I could actually catch this one right now as part of its fish difficulty because I have a 3. So I could increment my die by 1. And then I would have to take 2 regrets, which I now have that sea glass card. This is actually very tempting. The game is trying to mess with me. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do this, and we'll see how this pans out. So we're going to go ahead and increment the die up by 1. So we're going to treat the 3 as a 4, allowing me to take this one. Then we're going to go ahead and draw 2 regrets off the top and see what we get. So the very first one off the top is a deep regret. This is not good. That is a 3. You don't want to see many of those. The next one off the top of the deck is a heavy regret. That is also not good. Well, they don't call it deep regret for nothing. We still caught this thing, so we're going to go ahead and place it down below. I'm also going to go ahead right now with my sea glass card here and discard this in order to get rid of 1 regret card. I'm absolutely getting rid of that 3. All right, so it was a pretty tough haul getting that one in, but we managed to do it and managed to at least mitigate some of the terrifying regret that we had. That regret we discarded goes in its own discard pile on the ocean survey. I've also added the Slitmouth down here at depth 3 for small fish, and it is a foul one. And that's going to take us to the final day of the week, everyone's favorite day, Friday. At this point, I'm impressed the boat hasn't sunk yet. I've got a Goliath grouper, a frilled shark, a box jellyfish, a lamprey, a giant octopus, a tri-tentacle, a bubo, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly, and a Slitmouth. That is a lot of creatures on board. Let's go ahead and roll the dice and see if we can add some more to that pile. We got our, oh my gosh, my rolls have just been wild. Okay, so in this case, this is a great example of where I'm not going to use the wooden brass reel right off the hop here. We're going to keep this all in the fresh area. Man, my rolls have been great, I will say that. But it's good because if something comes up that messes with me, I can, again, as I mentioned before, use this wooden brass reel anytime during the day. Now, as much as I really want to go after this one, I don't, because I really don't want to add any more regrets based on the last two pulls that I had. They were pretty rough. So I'm going to go ahead with a small individual and see if we can tackle it. We got the lucky pull. Maybe we can make it easy. Wow, this is an interesting one. The Sharpier Nope Squid. This one is a small and fair, and as it's too difficulty, the lucky pull will allow it to be absolutely free, but it says you cannot sell or mount this fish. That fish has been recorded on the Ocean Survey, and another fish has revealed itself. Depth 3, it looks like a medium one. I've also flipped over the lucky pull to remind myself that I can't make use of that in the future. Let's find out what this one is. At the depths of the ocean, we found ourselves the Bride of the Sea, middling and foul. It's a value of 6, a difficulty of 4. And I've also mentioned multiple times when I've seen this icon here to the left that I've called it fish difficulty, the one that has the white background in the hook, that's actually known as the catch ability. Not much of a difference, really. At the end of the day, you're just trying to catch something. But this little icon here with the question mark is one that's actually not used at all during solo mode, although I could see why it would actually be kind of fun to do it anyway in this situation thematically, because you can see here that it would throw a whole bunch of wild stuff. Now, the kicker is, depending on what side it lands on, players either lose some of their actual regrets or they gain some regrets. So it can go either way, but in solo play, you don't take advantage of the question mark icon, so this entire thing is ignored. However, if you're playing, you could absolutely choose to go ahead and resolve this if you wanted to. She might be ugly, but I still want the Bride of the Sea, so we're going to go ahead and spend 2 dice, value 2 each, in order to take this one and add it. All right, so we have one more die left to go. It's probably best not to go after the absolute mammoth of a creature that's over here. Now, if we go after this one, I could actually get it cleanly, but then I'd have to take 2 regret cards, which I absolutely don't want to do. So let's go for this middle one right here. Awesome. This one works out quite nicely. This one is an asp. It's small and foul. It costs 3, which is literally perfect. Although it says down here, if we go after it, we are going to take a regret. So if I don't go ahead and do this, I'm spending a die and then I'm taking one of the dink cards, and that basically ends things off. So the question is, do I want to take it and risk getting some kind of regret that could actually hurt me? I don't know. I think I might actually hold off and just stop right there. We'll decide to go ahead and spin and not capture this thing whatsoever. We'll grab the dink card and hope the dink card can actually help us, maybe a regret that we already have. We got the syringe, and oh my gosh, it does. The syringe allows me to go ahead and discard, and that means, oh, I discard. Oh, no, wait, hold on a second here. This says that I'm actually drawing regret cards. That is not good. Well, that was an unfortunate pickup to say the least, and if I'm interpreting this correctly, picking up the syringe, I have to go ahead, as the icon depicts, it says discard this card, and when I do, I gained 2 regret cards. So right at the very tail end, just when I think I'm safe and I'm being cautious, the game throws a curveball at me. Now, if I'm misinterpreting this card in some weird way, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I have a choice not to resolve this, but I'm pretty sure that I have to, seeing as it ends up in a negative effect for me. So we're going to go ahead and roll with 2. Oh my gosh, a deep regret comes out at 3 and a nagging regret. That is not good. I went from just having a 3 value for regret, jumping up to a total of 7. I've now arrived at week's end, and here are the things we do. We count regrets, we jettison fish, we bring to port, unlock equipment, and then get back out there. So the first thing we do is count regrets, which we know is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We jettison fish. It states you get tired, you get sloppy, you got overwhelmed. There were casualties. You must discard any combination of fish with a total value equal to or greater than your total value of regrets. So for me personally, the ones that are in the deeper end of the pool are the ones I want to hold on to, as I don't want to jettison those ones. They're tougher to get down to and find and also capture. So I'm going to keep the ones down at the lower portions and start looking towards the top. Maybe the Goliath grouper would be a good option, as it would be for 4. And then maybe we get rid of this one here. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. We'll go ahead and get rid of this one. So unfortunately, I won't be able to bring this one to port. It gets thrown back into the sea. And then even though it shows up on the record sheet for me, these 2 are not going to get a check mark. So now at this point, we can bring the rest of the fish to port, and we can go ahead and check off each and every fish that's here in our boat on our ocean survey. That's now been complete for both sides of my ocean survey. You can see here the cutthroat trout that we threw away earlier, even though it's recorded here, does not have a check mark beside it. And a couple other ones we just tossed recently also are not getting a check mark, but we did manage to get a total here of 8 fish, which is pretty good. Next up, we're going to go ahead and total the value of all the fish we brought back to port. So we have a total of 9 here in this column, and then 10 over here, 8 and 7. That ends up being 34 total, which is pretty solid, but if we take a look at this card right here, it says you cannot sell or mount this fish, so if I'm interpreting that correctly, the value here is not going to contribute to the total, so I'm only going to get 30, which is still pretty solid. Now with 30 to spend, here is a list of all the equipment that I could potentially pick up. You can see the costs off to the side. You can see even here a bucket of chum is 29, so a very high valued item I could go after right now. Or I could say, you know what, I'm just shy of getting a green tackle die, but I could go after the blue tackle die, which would provide me an additional die that I could roll when I'm playing that gives 0 and 0 sometimes, which is not good, but other times 1 and 2. And again, if I have the reroll going on, that reroll might actually make that die more useful over time, so pretty good. That's not a bad option. There's also better pulls. I'm using the lucky pull. It only costs 10. It's very dirt cheap, bare bones, but there's better pulls out there to go after. They go all the way up to the Rod of Infinite, which is 80, and then down below you've got the reels, and I've got a very cheap reel as well, and there's upgrades to that. I'm going to show you the entirety of all 3 decks right now. So as you can see, there's lots of equipment to go after over the course of the game, and one important thing to note is, again, I only had the lucky pole and the wood brass reel. When you're playing in this solo mode, in between each day before you go out for the day, you can change out the equipment that you're using. So eventually, as you go through the game and you have multiple rods or you have multiple reels, you can choose to switch things out depending on what you're trying to accomplish going into a given day. So maybe you've revealed some fish at different depths and you know that a certain rod or reel combination or supply might help you out at that given day. Before you actually begin, you can swap those things out. It's important to know strategy-wise. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up the game overview and gameplay video for Deep Regrets. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this one. I'll let you guys know, as solo gamers out there, this is very much a light and casual solo game. You're coming at this from a collective mindset in terms of trying to not only record all of the fish in the game, but also get them to port, and of course upgrade your character as you go along with new equipment, whether it be rods, reels, and supplies. Now, this one is going to be coming back to crowdfunding in the future. They have a plan for what is known as Even Deeper Regrets, which will be an expansion, so you'll want to keep an eye on that, and I'll put details to what I find out about the solo mode in the pinned comment and video description, and I'll also have coverage for you on that in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.